Let's go ahead and open the meeting. Let's see. Can I get the town clerk to read the items on consent agenda?
Yes. Those items are the letter A, Board of Aldermen meeting minutes, March 9th, 2021, regular meeting minutes. May is Mental Health Month proclamation. Public Service Week, May 2nd through May 8th, 2021. Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 2nd through May 8th, 2021. National Police Week, May 9th through May 15th, 2021. And economic, I'm sorry, one more. I have a different agenda. Resolution for an Economic Development Week, and that is May 9th through May 15th, 2021.
Do I have a motion to approve the items on consent agenda? Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Presentation of the Main Street Champion Award. Catherine Day.
A little bit of history about this particular award. Vaccination Clinics and dedicated for vaccination clinics. This individual is recognized for their efforts, whether on particular project of building restoration or in deep work. Annually, the downtown advisory board selects the nominees and works on nominees. It determines whether the nomination meets their criteria. With these year's inductees, North Carolina has 806 Main Street champions. In light of the challenges presented to the small businesses of everyone in the Caribbean, Frontline Fund was designed to help the frontline personnel for the Piedmont Fire Department, Piedmont Public Works, Piedmont Post Office, Town Hall, and Sharp Big Donation Fund, seeded it with over 1,000 donors. Participating all key entities of local government, deliver the meals to those in need. In total, the Frontline Fund was raised $5,000. This endeavor had been touted. Raising awareness that they were for this effort, downtown Piedmont nominated Emily Sharp as our 2020 Main Street. The North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Center approved the nomination and announced the award at the 2020 Main Street Conference, which was held virtually March 9th through 11th. So we wanted to recognize tonight and present forward their certificate.
Wow.
Thanks, Mayor. Do I need to make remarks? Nobody prepared me for any remarks. No, I will say that I shared with Kira you on News Network yesterday. She asked me, well, why did you do it? And I said, well, first for selfish reasons, because I wanted to make sure that my favorite restaurant, we're still here after the pandemic, but to also support, you know, the frontline workers who, you know, continue to work. So that was the real reason. As a token of gratitude and also for my own selfish reasons. But thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good to see you, Mike.
You too.
Let's see. Any citizen in-house or online who'd like to make any statement to the board about the issue concern for the council?
A comment is that it's really hard to hear the board members speak. So if you could take your mask off when you're speaking.
Would anyone want to make comments? If not, we'll close the public comments. Dr. Stein, do you want to make some presentation to the board?
I would be happy to. I think it's less the masks than it is something about the microphones. We're having, Brad, I see your face nodding. It's trouble. It's difficult just to hear. So might be that something in the system. I just wanted to thank you all again for letting me be present and for your service. We have continued the meetings that between the university and the board recently with Davis and Monty and Pam, as well as Rich and 3 members of the university, just to think about how we can continue to work well together, define success for the future, that sort of thing. Those have been very helpful. And I think we're meeting again on the 19th, just to have some discussion and share ideas. I'll let you know that we continue, in terms of COVID, we continue, of course, testing on campus and offering testing to others. If you keep an eye out on the dashboard, you see that we have 17 active cases on campus right now. And those numbers have come down significantly since those 2 days of break earlier in March. We've also, as you probably know, been doing a lot of vaccination clinics. So we recently had a number of local residents from around the county come for the clinics over at South Campus Gym. And certainly some students, faculty, and staff were vaccinated as well. Our rough numbers, these are not really official, but self-reporting by students, show that 4,200 of the over 6,000 undergraduates have at least 1 dose already. And we believe that's actually a low number. So students have been very active in getting vaccines, over 850 of our employees. And there probably will be additional vaccine clinics in the future. We're just trying to assess whether it was internal to the campus or members of the local community. We seem to have reached a saturation point in our most recent clinics, got to the point like many other clinics where it was mainly walk-ins, or we could offer to walk-ins. So we'll wait and see, but I expect in a couple weeks we may have an additional clinic. You may have seen in the news today that there was some concern with 6 cases out of, I think, 6 or 7 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson. So the university was in contact with the state today, as many other entities were, about how to proceed on those Johnson & Johnson shots, and getting some very clear advice about just holding while they do due diligence in terms of making sure they've checked everything about the safety of those vaccines, but they feel pretty confident about them. So happy to answer any questions about testing or vaccinations. Thanks to Rich for getting the word out to Town of Elon employees and other businesses about the most recent vaccine clinics. Had a lot of folks show up, which I think was very helpful. Coming up in the next few weeks, where the semester's coming to a close. So we have commencement on campus this Friday. We are to announce final details. What we've told families and seniors thus far is that we will have multiple ceremonies on campus with probably only 2 guests able to attend. Something you've seen on a lot of campuses. That's Friday, May 21 is commencement. And we're just hoping that we'll be able to offer tickets for seniors to have 2 family members or friends join them for the ceremonies, all on Friday, May 21. And we are also in planning for limited number, but some actual summer camps. Lots of safety protocols would be in place, but we know that families need camps. So there'll be some athletics camps and some other things, but with some new safety regulations involved. Otherwise, we're in the midst of planning for next fall and hopefully being back as close to new normal as possible with, some eased restrictions, but also some needs for masking and testing of those who are not vaccinated and things like that. But back to support local businesses, certainly. And we have not yet made a decision on requiring vaccines of students. You saw Duke and a few others. Now we're at about 18 nationwide institutions that have required the vaccine. So that's a quick overview. And as I said, thanks for letting us be a part of this. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Those universities who are requiring the COVID shot, what are they finding out? I mean,
Say that last part again. I'm sorry, Mayor Tully.
the university is going to require COVID shot.
Yes.
What have the results been?
Oh, those 18 schools nationwide have received a range of feedback. At some schools, one of the first to require was Cornell University, and they are not fully in person as we are, right? They've got even more restrictions. They're mostly online. And so the reactions from their students were quite positive because they knew that would enable the students to come back face-to-face next fall. But no matter any institution, I think there's a mix of those who are very happy about it. And then you have those who have a range of concerns. Just because these are EUA emergency use approvals. And, anytime any of these institutions are requiring, just like with the flu vaccine, the MMR, anything like that, they're providing religious and medical exceptions. So that would be something that any institution requiring would have to do. Is that what you were asking?
Other questions?
I just saw recently where UNCG is putting students who get the vaccine into a lottery. Is that something the university has thought about to help incentivize?
That's a good question, Quinn. A number of schools have done different kinds of incentives, either for students or staff and faculty. That number I gave you earlier, we're well over 60% of students who have just informally let us know that they've already received a vaccine. And so I don't know that we are yet at the point of seeing a lot of students holding back. There's a few, but we just haven't gotten all the data in right now. We're working on getting students to upload their vaccine record cards. So we don't have any incentives in place except if you let us know that you have your 14 days past being fully vaccinated, then you're exempt from the weekly testing for at least 90 days. And that seems to have driven students. I mean, they're just tired of testing, right? So that seemed to push students, faculty, and staff, but we haven't done anything, and we've talked about it. Usually the last, portion is the hardest, right? The last group of adopters. So it might be that they all get dinner at the Root and Tangent. I don't know. We'll have to see what that is.
Any other questions or remarks? As always, thank you so much for visiting with us. We appreciate it.
Richard, let me try something with this big mic. Give me just a second.
Let's see, we got a public hearing. Mr. Stoner, what's this public hearing about?
Yes.
That is an 85 space parking lot. And I just want to show you where that is. And then, of course, I can ask Brad if he'd like to add anything. There's a red star on this slide. It's sort of in the close to the upper right-hand corner, and that's Dalton McMichael Drive that comes around and then curves to the north and narrows to a very, almost just a walking path. And the new parking lot, of course, is not shown on this aerial because it's too new. This is an existing parking lot to the north, and this small space here is where the new parking will go. This zooms into that spot a little bit more. The plan would be to make connections between all three of the parking lots, to close Dalton McMichael as it runs north, close it to vehicular traffic, and leave it open to pedestrian traffic. And there's some additional information. Of course, we have the plan set here if anybody wanted to see that in more detail, but it's a very simple project. This is the site plan, and it shows the existing parking lot to the north, and to the south is the brand new parking lot. And then what you have in the gray shaded area is what's being proposed. As a non-residential development, this does require board approval. It's considered a major development plan. And tonight we'd be asking for you to just have a simple approval or denial motion and vote on this item.
Let's open the public hearing. Any comments from citizens? Any questions or comment from board members?
Yeah, Pam, I had a question. So why is it because of where it's zoned that it required to be voted on?
No, sir. Our LDO currently requires that any non-residential development be treated as a major development plan and go through this process. And it's something that I'd like to talk with the board more about as we're redoing our LDO to see if the board still desires to see projects of this scope, or would just rather be updated on these types of projects. So that's a decision point for possibly later, but as it stands right now, it is required to receive approval from this board. The planning board, by the way, did hear it and gave a unanimous recommendation for approval.
And so basically they're eliminating the use of a tramway for that road and make it just pedestrian.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I've traveled that road in a public works truck, and it's pretty narrow. It's really not sufficient for two.
As far as the environmental issues, they're parking there now, so water needs into, I guess, the same location.
Yes, the parking lot they just built has underground stormwater measures. And of course, Brad's here. He might be able to speak to this in more detail. Some of the runoff is being directed to the stream that's immediately to the east, and that's permissible. And really, at this point with this project, it's been to the TRC. It's made one round of reviews, and our consulting engineer is working with them on primarily on stormwater. And then we've asked for some pedestrian crosswalks moving to the west for people leaving the parking lot to get to the classroom buildings.
Are there any requirements in our current ordinance where lighting and vegetation has to be incorporated?
Yes, we do have a lighting plan for this project, and the university, typically what we see is that they provide a landscaping plan to me as the project sort of nearing its end. And I have not yet seen one that does not exceed our requirements, but I always look at it closely. They just completed a couple of weeks ago the landscaping for the new parking lot, and if you've not seen it, go over and have a look because it's impressive. So we will see that, and part of that is for shade, but a good bit of it is for a buffer because there is a non-university owned property to the east.
And I noticed they had a bridge that was in the drawings. Is that?
Yeah, there's a bridge there now, just a pedestrian bridge that allows the students to access those condos.
If you want to call that.
Yes.
Other comments or questions? If not, we'll close the public hearing and call for a vote. Calls for a motion. Do we have a motion to approve the Elon University Major Development Plan?
I'll make a motion. We approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Ordinance, Mr. Ray, it seemed like you brought up a discussion of local non-discrimination ordinance.
Yeah, so I think we all received a couple emails prior to last meeting from some folks, and it looks like Rich added it to our packet with the Acres request and the Jackson's request. And then also separately have been getting other emails and talking about it and just doing my research about what this is and what this means. And so, I asked Rich to put this onto our agenda to just give us more information about it and to see where we can go with this.
Well, a couple of personal comments. I talked to a couple of my friends down in Raleigh about stuff like this, and they said, Jerry, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. If you remember that H2B thing down in Charlotte,
Yes.
for the bathroom thing, if you remember the legislature overrode that. But I think what they overrode it has expired. And it's my understanding that they're going to do something else down at Raleigh. And if we were to do anything, it may be overridden. I don't know.
This has nothing to do with bathrooms.
Oh, I know that. It was an ordinance that they passed. They did. I know that. Other comments from board members?
I guess I have a question. Do we know of any instances within our town or documented instances within our town limits that have been any type of discrimination from a sexual orientation standpoint? In other words, that need to be addressed, or we've had problems with that has been documented?
With respect to sexual orientation, I don't think we have any police records of it. We hear regularly from the university, from others, of street harassment, which is a form of discrimination. I've witnessed it, not directed at me, but directed at people I was walking with. We have heard through the university that students of color, students of different sexual orientations have been harassed verbally when out in public. So and those kind of complaints ultimately go to the university, and they don't deal with them through the police department. You deal with them through like a human rights commission that they have established. So those don't come out for general discussion or publicity. They deal with them in-house like that. So yes, there are cases in Elon where that's happening. And, you know, it's even beyond Elon, obviously, is a broader question. So documented ones, you know, like I said, it's hard to determine. I think there are people who certainly feel the impact of their gender, their race, what have you, in Elon.
Their religion, I guess we
Their
can
religion.
document the menorah.
Right.
Yeah.
Could be one.
Yeah. That's right.
But you don't have any direct documentation.
Well, I think
You're
it's,
in the plan that you may have, but do we have any?
We don't have any, I don't think there's any police records.
Okay.
It's more word of mouth. It's, you know, we have police records of shots being fired up at the Chabad.
Oh, yeah.
We've had, they said, reports from the university about students being accosted verbally on the streets. So, yeah, I mean, it's here. It's just, it's not it doesn't come through the police department where there's a written report, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, I read this and it says anti-discrimination in places of public accommodations and in employment. It doesn't refer to harassment. Harassment is not something we condone. But the way I read this is more about discriminating against people with certain identities. And I guess the question would, as Mark has asked, we have instances where someone has been discriminated against because of who they identify with, what they are, if they're pregnant.
I don't have any, no.
And so that's what I guess my point, I think that's where you're going.
yes.
You know, are we looking for a problem that doesn't exist here? I say it doesn't. And create an ordinance to prevent something that isn't happening now. Not to say it's, the ordinance is no guarantee it's going to prevent and protect everyone who's here. And I guess even from our own town, if you look at our own website, what does it say about discrimination?
We changed it today, so it's a trick question.
That to me, that's a first step.
You're right. We had bad language on our website and we've tried to correct it. We're trying to improve our application page as well to make it clear that we will not discriminate against people based on race, creed, ethnicity, ancestry, gender identification, religion, hairstyle, what have you. It's an affirmative statement that as town government, we will not discriminate. And that, I mean, that's in line with federal law and other things of that nature. I think the non-discrimination or anti-discrimination language that Chapel Hill has adopted, some other communities have adopted, goes beyond, I think, some of the federal language, and it's way beyond language state government has. There is legislation in DC that would address most of that, I think, if not all of it. But it's still, I mean, it's not being passed yet. So there's been a lot of suggestion and movement that, you know, maybe this kind of thing needs to start at the bottom and work its way up rather than start at the top and work its way down. So I think that's kind of the discussion that has been taking place out there.
Well, I was trying to remember, I've been on the board since '83. Never one time did anybody approach me about having discrimination in this town of any kind. And Mark, you've been here a long time and you've been here a long time. Have you ever had anyone come to you and say, hey, we need to do something? I've been discriminated against?
But that's not how it works, right? So, I mean, with
Well, if you don't have it, why do you want to fix something that's not good?
Well, it's not that we don't have, with trying to adopt something like this, it does allow an outlet to be had. Because, I mean, we do, we're white males, frankly, right? So we can just take a female, just gender, right? Gender identity, and walk into tangent and somebody's like, I'm not gonna give you a taco. I don't like women. Just not saying this happens, right? But this goes.
It could happen.
It could happen. Who is?
How long have y'all been open over there?
Who do we go complain to? Who does said victim say, you know what, they didn't serve me? So doing this allows people to not feel afraid to speak when it's happening to them. Right? Because right now there's no outlet for them to talk to. Do they call the police right now? Does it happen, or do they just like film it and put it on Facebook? So I think trying to move in a direction of this nature would allow us to put that commitment forward as a government entity, saying we take this commitment in our town that we don't want to have discrimination. And I know everybody on this board does not want discrimination. Like, this is something we are not about. And so trying to move forward with this lets it know that we are working. I mean, we have a large group of college students, a liberal college, that from all over the world, all over the US, of different races and genders. And this also covers vets as well. And it doesn't mean for us to have quantitative data before we do this, I think is not the correct approach, because it's not happening. When we hear stories over and over, I know we're not on social media, but you can look up Elon Black alumni, and they have just recently this summer told stories of what it's like to be Black in Elon, and stories of them being discriminated against. You can look up LGBTQ caucus of Alamance or of Elon University, and them tell you stories of that. And it is different. It's like Monty was saying, with harassment and discrimination in a place. So yeah, it is on the street and stuff of this happening, but this is putting that commitment forward. And I think most of our downtown businesses, and I know we have more businesses outside of downtown. This is something I think we would like to see as merchants as well, knowing that we are within a community that supports others, right? Because it's, we talk about special rights, and we're not trying to give special rights to people, but it's just a way to let them know that we hear them and we see people that are discriminated against. I mean, right after, I don't know if it was before this truck caravan, but right under the bridge at Gibsonville, we had a racial slur spray painted across the street, that Public Works talked about. So it is happening. For us to say, maybe it's not happening because we're not hearing about it. I don't know if that's the
That's like
proper
saying
angle to
that we
look at.
shouldn't have a speed limit because nobody speeds in Elon.
Or I didn't see anybody speed down this road.
So how are we going to police this?
That's a good question. And so that's why I think, this is just to start the topic of it. And, then we give it to our lovely staff to help research other ways of how other towns are doing it. Buncombe County, the ordinance is not on here. It's just the Chapel Hill one. But Buncombe County has adopted one that is pretty strong, that people seem to enjoy with it. And I don't think we do it a criminal act, right? I think, we do it in a civil respect of it. And we don't have an HR department, right? So I don't think it goes to the police office. I think, Rich and I guess our lawyers figure out a good way to move forward with it.
That has been my question about this process as well. How do we enforce it? We're not going to handcuff people or cite them criminally. How do we do investigations? We don't have a housing board that deals with housing discrimination. We don't have a human rights commission that deals with hiring abuses or what have you. So that would be something we would have to figure out, whether, as Quinn suggests, I work with the town attorney to do that, whether there is a group out there that we could essentially contract with on a case-by-case basis to do the investigation for us. I don't know those answers. I haven't spent the time looking at it because, quite frankly, I was waiting to hear from you folks as to how you wanted to proceed. Those are issues that would have to be dealt with.
Well, what am I'm objecting to an ordinance. An ordinance is the same as a law. Now, we can have what I had you pull up this letter that we wrote after the track. Did you read it?
Yes.
And what did it say? We are an open and welcoming town, and our adopted goals and policies enshrine these virtues. We strive daily to make sure that the people of all walks of life feel safe with no regard to race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or sexuality. We need to put that somewhere or something similar. I don't think we need an ordinance. An ordinance is a law. And when I talked to my friends in Raleigh, they were more concerned about an ordinance. I mean, I would hope everybody would agree with something like that. And we ought to have it on every web page and everything that we got.
Can I ask a question? In the example you gave, Quinn, which is a good example, I think, if the merchant discriminated. And as I understand it, none of those merchants have a monopoly on offering service or products. And in a small town such as ours, that's concentrated by the university, if someone were discriminated to not provide a service or product, it wouldn't take long in our day of social media for that to get out. And that's not something the merchant's going to want to condone because they're not going to survive.
Sure.
And so for the town to say, we're going to create an ordinance where I think the responsibility is on the employer, the merchants. You would employ people who are congruent with your ideas and philosophies, how you run your business.
Sure.
Likewise, our town is the same way. I think the statement you shared, Mayor, was really kind of covers it all. I mean, we don't condone abuse of anyone.
So why not
We
put
don't
an
discriminate.
We don't do it.
But if you start singling out certain people, are you excluding anyone? It's almost as if we had this problem, we created ordinance to make it go away. And I think I understand that's kind of where I see you going. And your example of speeding, that's a fair comparison. But I think we have to think about this. Whose responsibility is it to prevent discrimination? Is it the
Yeah, and I
town's
think that-
responsibility or employers and merchants?
Yeah, and I think that what we're discussing today is, do we support more research being done and to consider, maybe a committee a committee of residents to help with this process. So it's not just those of us sitting up here who maybe have never experienced this, maybe, I'll give one example that there is a Black gentleman in our neighborhood, and it is posted in the neighborhood that you cannot fish. Now, granted, this would not fall under this ordinance, but I'll give you an example of discrimination. That you cannot fish in the neighborhood if you are not living in the neighborhood. All right. And multiple occasions, and I'm pretty sure that Chief Blackwelder is on here, this resident of the neighborhood has had the police called on him because of the way he looks. And because he is a Black male and he is fishing in a neighborhood where evidently white neighbors don't think that Black people live. And so discrimination does exist. And this isn't just about LGBTQ and, our residents who identify in certain ways. This also does cover veterans. What if someone was anti-military and they said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to serve you a pizza because you're associated with the military, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this for you because you're pregnant, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to serve you because you're a white man. And this is what I think about white people. You have to put yourself in the shoes of those individuals and think about that. And what if you couldn't rent a house because someone was biased against you? What if?
But there are laws in place now for that. Fair housing laws. there are laws in place for that. And I guess that's my point.
That's something we can definitely.
Are we replicating
But
something that exists today? In your example, I don't know if other people have been stopped for fishing. Could have happened, and only the chief can tell us if they've had instances of that. But I don't think any of us want to be a Supreme Court case where someone is forced to do something that they don't believe in doing. And I think you see the case with a baker in Colorado. You know, he has a right to run his business. People have a right to go there. Does he have to provide all the services that are asked of him? Well, that's what's being challenged now. And I wouldn't want any of our merchants to have to do something that's not in agreement with the way they want to run a business.
Sure.
And not discriminate. That's just my opinion.
Well, it's been a good, I'd like to know what Davis Montgomery thinks. Why don't we continue this to the next meeting and see what he thinks?
I think it's a great idea to have a committee that's representative of people throughout our community.
Yeah.
They have opinions on both sides of the issue. Because that's the only way you're going to come to a resolution.
I totally agree. I mean, obviously, I'm a more conservative thinker, but I'm also open-minded. And I don't think, in thinking about this, it's all on the agenda, I'm 100% against any type of discrimination. As a Christian man, that's not the way I'm raised and the way I think. I do think we have to be cautious with the law aspect of it. And maybe we can adjust, our wording and things. And I understand what you're saying. What's the, where does someone go to if that happens?
Sure.
And I think further investigation of it's probably a good idea. We can't fix everything.
That's right.
The way society is now, it's hypersensitive and for good reason in a lot of cases. But I think what I don't want to see is us create a problem where there's not one. And what I mean by that is you can go anywhere on the face of this earth and people are going to discriminate. If you get down to the letter of the law or ethics, people discriminate every day. And I know that's not what you're talking about, but I think we have to be careful with that identification because it is very subjective in many, many ways.
Sure.
So, I do think we should have a group of folks, our citizens, that take a look at that and we go further with it. So I'm not at a point of saying, oh, no, I'm totally against that because I'm not against, I'm completely for us saying we are not
Sure.
any type of discrimination. Now, I think, what I first thought when I saw this was kind of what Monty said. There's a difference between harassment on the street, but you're always going to have idiots.
That's right.
Period. You can't police idiots. But it's a totally different circumstance if we have someone of a different sexual orientation or whatever that goes to an employer here in town and says, and I was denied this job because I'm
Right.
transgender or whatever. I don't know the laws on this. To me, that would be almost I need to go to higher court than the town of Elon in a case like that. But again, I don't know all those laws.
That's how it would be now. It'd be having to go to higher court. And that's why it's really difficult now because, a lot of people can get discriminated against and don't have the means for it. So with us putting in an ordinance of this, it puts it down on paper for when it happens to move further, that we decided as a town, or however we decide to police it and investigate it, that this happened. So now it's on paper to help move to the court. Because I couldn't take something to the Supreme Court right now. If I was denied housing for some reason. That's another thing with this. I think we can partner with the state housing department. And then it could deal with the fair housing aspect. So we might not have to cover that within the ordinance. Sorry.
Well, the same thing with employment too. Employment, I know with my job, we have certain parameters we have to go by. The town of Elon or city of Burlington, if I have an issue where it's I'm accused of it as an employer of discriminating against someone because of their sexual orientation or their religion, race, whatever, I'm not going, to my knowledge, I mean, that's never happened, but the city of Burlington, where I'm at my office, is not going to get involved with that unless, I guess, the person sues, and then at that point, then your human resources department gets involved in that type of thing. I personally, and again, I don't understand all of it, so there may be some issues here, but I personally don't know of a situation where the actual town would get involved or the city would get involved with that. Other than we make a statement from that regard, from a law enforcement standpoint, I'm not aware of that, but that would be the reason for us to get together a group and to hear those ideas, and to make people do feel like they're included in the story.
That's right.
And I do think that's important, but I do think we have to be really, really, really careful in ordinance or law part of that. So, and there could be a lot of good things that come out of this.
Sure.
Just from a discussion standpoint, right? I
That's
mean,
right.
a lot of this is, addressing the issues we're seeing on a macro level right now.
Sure.
And so I think maybe that in itself would be very productive in, folks that maybe have felt like they might have been discriminated against or, treated differently because of the way they are. And again, I'm totally against that, completely against that. And I know everybody here is, and maybe that forum would be a good way to kind of express our feelings on that too.
Well, the only thing that I don't agree with is having an ordinance, a law. And if you have an ordinance, then you've got to make sure if somebody comes, you got to have staff time, you might get sued, you got to have lawyers and all that. And I don't think that many municipalities in the state of North Carolina are having ordinances. But I think all of us said you shouldn't discriminate against anybody. I worked at Elon University all those years and worked with Black athletes all the time. And I never saw a time that our Black athletes over there were discriminated in any way. And this was from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It just didn't.
Old
But
statement.
like I say, the only thing I disagree with what you're proposing is to have an ordinance. But we should have something on the webpage. We should preach that and everything, that we don't discriminate against anybody and we welcome everybody.
And I think our message has that, and I agree with your statement, Mark, and with you, Mayor. I think everybody in this room is against discrimination, and I wholeheartedly believe that. And you're right, we're not seeing a lot of municipalities across the state because it's new, right? It's starting now where they're giving it to it, but North Carolina still is an at-will state. So there's not much protection. There's no protection statewide for this type of stuff. And that is, this would be new. This would be being more progressive and stepping forward and trying to put our foot forward with this. And yes, and I agree with Monty as well, with the conflicting of, with the bakery in Colorado issue. Like, yeah, I mean, private business, right? But then again, we don't have to deal with that too much. And so it's let the business deal with itself. But what happens, let's say we have this on our website and the statement you wrote and read after the caravan that came through, we don't support it. We don't do anything. But let's say we have a known business in town that just won't serve people of the, LGBTQ community. We know this. They've told us over and over, people have came and complained. We've gotten this complaint. And again, this is all hypothetical, but it still stands because it still has business of some sort. But we're against, I mean, that's just a weird thing for me to think, we're preaching we don't like this, but then this is constantly happening. And not that it is now, but if we don't think it's an issue where, and I understand if we create something or make an ordinance, are we open Pandora's box with getting complaints filing in and stuff, which one could be a good thing because now we got an outlet for people. So now we can hear this. And maybe we don't file and penalize them. Maybe it is just a meeting of the town and the employer or with this person, letting them know that things are happening. But I think overall, what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong with the rest of the board, is we would like more information about this, how other towns are doing this. But it is new. Y'all can check out Equality NC or like weareready.org. And it has the cities that have been going through this. This would be a new frontier for municipalities.
So Chapel Hill, how are they saying, how are they policing? It's what research you've done. What are they doing to police that? I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do what Chapel Hill's doing or Carver or anything, but just as a point of reference, how are they handling those type of things from a legal standpoint?
It says penalties and enforcement in addition to or in lieu of other remedies available by law, any person violating any provisions of this article may be subject to an enforcement action brought by the town under, then it says, you know, a big long number in letters, for an appropriate equitable remedy, including but not limited to a mandatory or prohibitory injunction commanding the defendant to correct the conduct prohibited under this article. This article is not intended to limit the remedies available to any person under state or federal law. I do know that some of them are assigning fines. And then after so many fines, I think that there's additional, you know.
Was there a police investigation?
No, this is not a criminal act. This is a civil.
More than likely what would happen, and I again use tangent as the business. If somebody comes to the town and would say, hey, they fired me because I'm pregnant, right? And discriminating against me, or they didn't hire me because of this. Well, that's when whatever our staff decides the best way to investigate and do this, they would come to tangent and say, hey, we got this complaint about this, is this the case? Just letting them know that we are not accepting of which having this ordinance would cause the town to get involved with letting that business owner or that landlord or what have you know that there was a complaint filed, right? It's not arresting anybody, and if it continues multiple times, and then this is where we get to put in the ordinance, we get to write it, right? Maybe after 3 complaints of this business or renter, we hit them with a fine with these complaints after we decide how it is investigated of the sort. But to give people an outlet mainly to be able to come to us and us tally mark these, right? To understand, maybe it is just a meeting of the plaintiff and the defendant with the town, saying that this is happening. That's stuff that we all get to decide how it's done. But as of now, there's nothing that is preventing it, nor is there any way of people documenting it.
So how long has Chapel Hill had?
Just recently.
So they really don't have, there's really not any experience of their fines and.
January 14th.
Until December, towns are not allowed to have these kind of ordinances.
So what, did the state legislature changed that?
As the mayor commented about HB1 back in 2017, I think, state put a prohibition on anti-discrimination laws. Part of the negotiation that took place between the bathroom bill and anti-discrimination. Anti-discrimination prohibition had a sunset of December 2020. As of 2020, the prohibition went away. Towns are now able to adopt these kind of ordinances. Carborough, Buncombe County, Durham, Chapel Hill, Raleigh now. Okay, so I mean, there are communities that are doing it. As you said, enforcement is an issue, and all those communities are a little bit larger than we are, and have additional resources. So we would have to, if we went in that direction, we would have to tailor it for our capacity. And, start with, maybe you start with negotiations and conciliation and, arbitration, that kind of thing, as opposed to levying fines or whatever.
I guess the other question we should think about is, okay, how do you delineate the difference between what happens on the university, and what happens here? I mean, I know probably the simple answer is if it's on their campus, then they deal with that. But if it's downtown, we deal with it. I mean, if we do something like that, because probably, excuse me, the majority of the folks that we're probably going to be dealing with in that might be college students, because they're the, when they're in session, the largest part of the population here. So I guess that would be another caveat to take a look at if we're investigating this, is what are the strict parameters on that? Is it going to be like we do now with the university police, handling that part of it, or do we get involved in that? I mean, again, questions just to think about.
I think ordinance should require a lot of thought and discussion. I mean, I think whether there's 10 churches in our town, right? Around 10 churches.
Seemingly.
So if they had a job opening for a choir director and someone came and applied and said, hey, I'm a satanic atheist, I want to apply for your job, I got all the credentials, and they were denied. That in some eyes, that would be discrimination, wouldn't it?
Certainly would be. Whether it's illegal or not is a different question.
Right.
And I think as far as businesses, putting it in there, I think, does the state say that the businesses, when we talk about it, has to be more than 15 employees or more than 20 employees?
Chapel Hill says 1.
Right, but the state law, I think state law is actually kicking at 50. I think
50.
was the recollection. So, I would consider to be a large business can't discriminate. Under state law, small businesses can. Under state law.
One of the things I would say again about the state legislature, if you remember the H2 bill down at there, they passed a law that said they couldn't do that. And that law expired. That's why you can do it. It's my contention in talking to friends down there, they're going to pass another law. And like they said, Jerry, you shouldn't even touch this thing. And before I do anything, I talk to Dennis Rydell. He's our representative, and Amy Gailey, and see what they're thinking is going to happen.
Well,
This could all be
passing
for
right now.
naught.
I mean, the Senate right now, they're passing anti-LGBTQ bill currently. So, and then Rydell or Haley. I mean,
Well, they're passing that. I don't know if they-
right,
I don't know if they're going to prove what we're doing.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's why we're, take it on as a municipality. But I think Monty's statement was the heaviest and is exactly correct. An ordinance should take a lot of thought and a lot of discussion, and should not just be something that is just forced out. Same, I agree that and I think Emily even talked about it, and that's why it's not even on the agenda. It's just a discussion on the agenda. And yes, I would like to move forward with learning more of other counties, how they are policing it, I think is the biggest one. And how other ones are written, other than just Chapel Hill.
Right.
I agree. I think we should look at a variety, if we're doing the research on a variety of places,
And the university is a big one too, maybe they get in with this discussion with us of how, do they have any anti-discrimination stuff put in? And is that something we do piggyback on? I'm trying to think of a thing that would do it is, maybe the Mill Point, the university controls Mill Point, right? And that's still university housing. Somebody would say, yeah, I didn't get this housing because X, Y, and Z. Do we step in, or does the university have a thing
Right, that's
with
what I
it?
was saying earlier.
Right.
If we were to do that, the parameters, I would certainly think that'd be the university,
Sure.
just intuitively, but
Yeah, I think we ought to stay clear, tell the university what they should do. As a university shouldn't get involved with telling us what we ought to do.
I think we should work together on something of this nature. And I think that's another reason of why I feel like this is something to research a little bit more is we do have a university in our backyard where it's not just the same community, you know, it's a constant evolving community of different people. And so that's, you know, we want everyone in here to feel safe, just like your proclamation. And that's why I guess I would like to push a little more than just having a proclamation. Because if we feel this way, you know, let's put it into paper that we feel this way instead of just saying it.
You can feel that way without having a law. Can't you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it, but if we're really going to support the way we feel and we want to act, you know, it's not just your words, right? It's people's actions. So I think if we put something into action, it would.
Well, I think here we have a disagreement. You want a law and I do not want a
Sure.
law.
Yeah, I would like something more than a proclamation,
Yeah.
but without a doubt. But I think, you know, let's research it and move forward.
Well, I think, why don't you research this? I would advise you again to call Dennis Rydell, Amy Gailey, even as opposed to what Quinn said.
Yeah, talk to them.
Yeah, and just tell them what's down the pipe. Well, we could be wasting our time. And I'm not opposed to setting a committee together after you've done your research. A couple of board members and citizens, talk about it. Quinn, I would like for you to be on that if we appoint one. So
Absolutely.
you would want to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, we might have a long public comment.
Okey doke, let's see, where are we now? Oh, new business, Art Advisory Board member, Kathleen?
She's doing double duty up there.
Let's go out of notes. So we had a new person that volunteered to be on our board. And I apologize up front. It's Dr. Schmitter. She works for the university. She has an undergraduate degree in fine art, and she is the person that implemented the My Future Hope for the Future art project that was down East Haggard this past fall. She's an advocate for inclusion of public art across Elon University and would like to assist in having more public art in the town. She does live in Burlington, so that's an unusual thing for our advisory board, but she spends most of her time on campus. So I figured that helps out a bit, but she has volunteered and would like to join our art advisory board.
Do we have to approve that?
Yes.
And you
I
don't
would like for
any
you.
reservations of her not being a citizen of the town?
No, because she's
Do we
already,
have any other board members on any commission or anything that are not residents of the town?
downtown advisory board.
We do?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm all right with it.
And planning board has ETJ, as an ETJ member,
Yeah.
not a resident.
That's part of the ordinance.
So would that fill all your positions? They have 3 members, is that what you said?
Currently we have 3. She's the 4th. We would need 1 more. So we're still searching for volunteers.
How are you soliciting volunteer?
Her was a conversation. We've done the advertisement. I just need to do another round of advertising for that. So hopefully I've got a person in mind to hopefully diversify a little bit.
And I guess there's a staggered terms,
Yeah.
2 years or 3?
It's currently 3, 2, 1 for the ones that are sitting on there. So I would assume we'd go backwards and go to 3 again with this one.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion, have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we got a annual financial audit contract.
Yes, just need the board to approve contract with Cobb, Ezekiel and Lloyd to do the financial audit again. The cost is $15,300. They did it last year, and Patricia with Stout, Stewart, McGowan and King will prepare the financial statements again.
Any questions for Missy? We have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Town managers report.
Um, As we are hopefully moving out of pandemic time, encourage residents to check our website and our calendar. There are multiple events that are being scheduled in and around downtown. Recreation programs out at Schmidt, music in the streets. So I think those are all popular on our website now, so if you'll take a look. And I'm sure there's a music style that be of, that'll suit everybody at some point or other during the next couple of weeks. We've been welcomed several new employees to the town over the last month or so. Christopher Miles and Crystal Pyron, both new hires at the police department. And Wesley Hunt is our newest fire engineer in the fire department. Fire department is now at full staff, and the police department still has one opening, which is, I think, in the process of being filled, but it's still an opening at this point. There's been a lot of talk about the American Recovery Act, or American Recovery Plan, I guess it is, that is essentially the new stimulus round that was approved, I think back in early March, late February. We think we know that we will be getting a couple $1 million or several $1 million from the federal government. We're not sure of that yet, what the actual total is going to look like. And we have some general guidelines as far as how that money will be spent, but we are still waiting for actual rules and guidelines. The latest I've seen is that probably sometime in the latter half of May, those guidelines will be available, which will actually tell us how we can spend that money. We met last week, talked about some options that hopefully we can use that are designed, one, to accommodate some of the infrastructure needs we have, and designed to reduce long-term costs for the town. So hopefully those will come about, and as we learn more, we'll certainly be back to you folks for those decisions. As noted, that COVID infection rates have fallen dramatically in the state of North Carolina and in Alamance County. Kind of hit a stasis and are kind of been flat over the last probably month or so, within a small range. Anticipating that is going to continue or decrease, and I say anticipate because we could go the other direction still, but anticipating that's the case, I'm proposing that we reopen Town Hall to walk-in traffic on June 7th. Odd date, but the week prior of June 1st, most of our finance office is going to be out of the building and training, or in training for day-long sessions. So I didn't want to open up and then have to close. So June 7th is our target date to reopen to walk-in traffic. We would still require distancing, presumably under the governor's order, require masking, that kind of thing. That'll come about, and we'll get a little bit closer back to what we consider normal.
Did I hear Dr. Stein say that graduation was the 22nd of May?
21st, I believe.
Well, that was commencement. Graduation was, well, you're probably right. I thought he said commencement the 21st. Which one's Saturday? It'll be Saturday.
Friday, May 21 is all three undergraduate ceremonies.
Thank you, appreciate that. Other items?
All set.
Board members? Ms. Yar?
I just want to say I'm really enjoying the music downtown on Fridays, and it's really great to see so many people out, even with the storm rolling in this past Friday. Downtown was full of people, and it felt, it almost like feels like normal, even though we all have masks on and don't, really go and, hug or, anything like that. And nobody was out dancing like, you know, sometimes we were in the middle of the street with the bigger events. Also, in discussing a committee to look at non-discrimination and moving forward with that, in late 2019, we did make a commitment as a board to develop a committee on sustainability that has not yet taken place. So I just wanted to bring that back up, that when we did have that discussion, that we did say that we would be looking at that further. Obviously, that was in the transition of town managers, and then COVID happened. So it hasn't been a priority, but just to put that on everyone's radar. And I would be happy to serve on that committee if given the opportunity.
Make note of that, Mr. Roder.
I did. Underline with an exclamation point.
And that's all from me.
Mr. Allison?
I just want to give recognition to the police department and fire department on Easter. I didn't know they were doing this, but we're walking, my wife and I saw all the fire trucks and sirens look like, the word siren, to the lights going, and you always get a little antsy when you see that happen around your town hall. And to their credit, they had organized and arranged, I think, 60 bags of candy bags to give out and have kids see their equipment, the new fire truck, and talk to our staff and officers. And I thought that was just a nice gesture for the community. And I'd like to see us try to do more of that.
Right.
You know, I want to echo thanks to Emily for the, congratulations on winning your Main Street thing, but it definitely helped us downtown. It was a great gesture. And then so I'm part of the art committee, and we have our first competition. We put it out, it was competition, but project competition. The sign-in, the final date is April 16th, but it's a repurposed art. So take some recycled stuff, trash, put it together, make art. We have it different categories for elementary school, middle school, high school, and adults. We've only gotten one submission. The deadline is the 16th. It was really quick. We put it out there. We wanted to have it ready for Earth Day and display them outside at the farmers market because that's happens to be on Earth Day. So if you know anybody that wants to do it, it'd be great. But I'm really enjoying this committee. They're very diligent and working hard, and we all like to talk. So we have our first project down, and we'll keep moving forward with it.
Green?
Kudos again to you, Emily. Well-deserved award there, really was. I mean, you took the bull by the horns at a very difficult time, and you deserve the kudos for that. So I respect you a lot for doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
Rich, I appreciate always the updates there. That is very helpful for us to kind of know what's going on. I really do appreciate that. And I thought we had some good discussion tonight. I think, open to ideas and everything. And I think very good discussion there. And I think we can go forward and just kind of look into that potential going forward. So
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
You sure
Sorry.
can.
I forgot to mention that our community cleanup, Rich is probably like, she forgot already.
I was going to chime in at the end.
Our community cleanup, our next one is this Saturday. So you can check Facebook, or you can just send me an email if you want more information, but we'll meet here at Town Hall. We were going to do West Bergen University, but we've been advised against that by NCDOT for safety reasons.
State roads too.
Yeah, so we are, I'm still trying to figure out where we're going to be, but we're thinking that we are going to be Williamson and Haggard, east of Williamson, beyond University.
Well, somebody picked up Westbrook.
Yes, somebody did. But the northern part of University Drive really needs some attention. But like I said, NCDOT really wanted us to kind of stay off of that busy of a road. So we're following that guidance and trying to stick to an area that's a little safer. But final details will be available, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for another really good weather day.
And if I could, I know several weeks ago, the Sheriff's Department commented they were going to get involved in doing some roadside cleanup with some of their charges. And I did contact them and was essentially said, well, they're taking their lead from the state. you know, the state identified ones. So I contacted state DOT and complained about Westbrook and South Williamson and University. And so hopefully it'll work its way back around to Alamance County and get on the sheriff's list to
Well, I
do.
drive down University Drive from Elon into Burlington, and it looks much, much cleaner. Now, I remarked to my wife, it might be that the grass is growing up. And you just can't see it.
So so even if you did along the sidewalk of University, the DOT doesn't want you to do that?
Well,
'Cause that's a
along
pretty
the,
safe.
yeah, along the
Thank you.
sidewalk isn't the area of greatest concern. It's the
Yeah.
northern part, like just when, so once you pass the businesses on the
Yeah.
northern side
Yeah.
where there's
The
nothing but, grass and brush, there's a lot of trash there. There's also low lighting, so I'm assuming that especially at night, people are just driving and they're throwing things out of their vehicles. So that's really the area probably of greatest concern now that Westbrook has been cleaned up.
Part of it, yeah.
Um,
And the ramp off of University onto Haggard,
yeah,
the western end is really bad.
well, we can look at that maybe.
Not to belabor this, but one of the things that Sheriff Johnson did, he found a bag of trash on the side of the road. He looked in it, saw a credit card and address, went to the guy and said, you got a choice. You can either pick it up or I'm gonna fine you right now. What he said at the county commissioners, cleanest I've ever seen that road. But in closing, congratulations again. And great discussion tonight. And I think I agree with everything everybody says, except for one thing. I don't think it ought to be an ordinance. I think we ought to advertise it every way we can and do everything we can to promote it. But I think you have all kind of problems when you have a law, then you got to enforce. Other than that, we're in a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.